Many people have this idea that sex is supposed to be spontaneous. But really, and especially for busy people or people in a long-term relationship, if we leave sex ongoingly to just happen by itself, it can be somewhat unsatisfying. It's either too quick, perhaps too predictable. So yes, we go through the motions, but our mind just tend to drift off and we simply don't enjoy ourselves as much as we could. One of the ways to overcome this is what I would call an intimacy date. I used to call it the sex date night. However, some people told me that they actually prefer having sex at different times and not during the night. So I changed the name to simply sex date. But then what I realized is that people's understanding of sex is quite limiting, and that's when I changed it to simply intimacy date. Similar to the concept of a date night in which you go out with your partner to connect and have fun, an intimacy date is all about connecting through intimacy. The principle is about dedicating about 1 to 2 hours of really showing your partner how much you care for them and how much you appreciate the fact that they're in your life. And yes, it can include sex as long as the sex is done in the exact same manner of giving your partner the nourishment and the care they long for. The intimacy date should be planned in advance. Some people go through rituals, some people go through different exercises, some people do the same thing every intimacy date, and others create a new plan every time they do an intimacy date. I highly recommend starting the intimacy date with 10 to 15 minutes of being by yourself. So you can dedicate this time for grooming yourself, for meditating, anything that will help you ground yourself and remind you the purpose of the intimacy date. When planning for the intimacy date, you can either plan it yourself or plan together with your partner or take turns and alternate. And when I say plan, I literally mean planning what you're going to do throughout that intimacy date. Some people really enjoy exploring and finding a ritual that works for them every time. And the rituals could be as simple as sitting in front of each other and gazing into each other's eyes. Perhaps telling each other what you appreciate and like about each other. For other people, simply hugging in stillness is a really good option. Whatever you choose to do, make sure it's something that both you and your partner will appreciate. On top of that, it's a really nice idea to think about those things that make your partner feel ultra special. Things like finding a music that they like, or bringing them flowers, or lighting up some candles or incense. After you spent a bit of time together showing your affection, if both of you feel like moving forward into a more sensual zone or even a sexual zone, go ahead and do that. But make sure that you know the purpose of this date is not just about sex. It's about showing your partner how much you care for them and how much you want to nourish them in this relationship. Now, when I talk about sex, I want to make it clear. Sex does not have to include anything in it. It does not have to include an erection. It does not have to include penetration. It does not have to include any type of orgasm whatsoever. When I talk about sex, I'm referring to the experience of exploring each other's body with the intention of providing care and learning how much pleasure your bodies can experience with each other. You might ask yourself how often you should be doing this intimacy date. Well, I usually recommend once a week. Once a week is a really good frequency to make sure that your relationship is the top priority. However, I also know that busy couples, especially couples with young children, once a week might be a little bit too much. So just decide on the frequency that works for you both. if you want to learn more about having sex in a way that is super fulfilling, join my free e-course on the website makeloverevolution.com.